This video is going to be a rebroadcast of a Twitch stream I did about setting up your Capture One. I'm Daniel Norton, photographer here in New York. I make videos like this one. This is going to be, I guess, technical. It is actually, if you don't follow me already, on Twitch on Sundays generally. I go live and we go in Capture One, we edit photos, we talk about shoots, kind of doing different things. And I get a lot of questions about setting up Capture One for tethered shooting and for editing. So this video, which is actually part 1 of 2, is that. Essentially, the setup here is that I created a new session and I'm going to set up a tethering kind of tab. So I have all the tools for my tethering shooting that I use, and I'll explain why I do it and which ones I use. And then another tab I'm going to set up for my editing, like my retouching, if you will. That's the first part of that's this video. And then look forward to another video, which I have to edit out, which is going to be the second part of that Twitch stream, if you missed it, which is going to be about setting up your process recipes so you can output to clients. So anyways, let's get to it. All right, here I am. Here's Erica. I just took these handful of images of Erica because I've looked at all my numbers, and whenever I use Erica, I get more views. So do your research, kids. No, this is the last one that I was editing. So what we're going to do, I actually already started one, but I'll get rid of it. Up here in your, in the right corner here, you've got your tabs, right? So if I hover over them, should tell me what they are. Like this one is capture. It's called capture. This is lenses. This is color. But you can actually make your own. So I made this one, call it onset. I'm going to get rid of it though. And you can see I already set it up. But I'm just going to right click on it and I'm going to remove tab. All right, we're just going to get rid of it because I'm going to make it again for you guys. So when you're setting up your Capture One, you know, not 3 years after you download it like I'm doing right now, you can think about the things that you use the most or maybe projects that you do and create your own tabs so that you get all the stuff in one place when you're working. So what I would always do, and you can actually, I'm not sure how you do this anymore because it's been a long time, but you can actually export these as well. So you can put it on a disk or like a flash drive or whatever. And then if you're using rented computers or you go somewhere and you're traveling, you can actually put your own, you can upload your own tabs onto there here. All right. Anyways, so actually maybe we'll do a little quick thing and figure out how to do that after we make our tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tab, which is basically going to be the kind of tab that I would set up if I was shooting the kind of work that I did mostly, which was catalog work. So I'm only going to put in this tab the stuff that I'm going to use during the tethered shoot. Like if I look over here at the capture tab that they have made for us, we can see what they give us, right? They give us the exposure evaluation, which is basically your histogram. They give the camera for connecting. They give the camera focus if you want to use that. They give the camera settings. They give the camera naming, or capture naming, I should say. They give the location. They give the adjustments. You know, so you've got all this, right? Okay. Of course, they give you the overlay. So some of this is very useful, but you don't necessarily need all of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one that's like this. It's on there and nice. Okay, good. I'm going to create a, thanks, Seth. I'm going to create basically something like this, but I'm only going to put in the things I want. Then I'm going to add a couple things that I also use generally so that if I'm shooting, I don't have to switch back and forth. And this way, when you guys watch me do live on sets, which I should be live this Thursday, I believe. Seth, we'll talk. I'll use this tab and you'll see how I'll do it. You might often see me jump back and forth, and that's because I didn't make tabs. So let's make one. We're going to call it, so I'm going to come up here in this upper quadrant. I'm just going to right click and you can see add tool tab. There's some that are, you know, that exist that I don't have up there already, right? And there's a capture tab. You can remove that one, I should say. And then you've got these ones, which are the ones I believe that are already there. Or these are the ones that are there, so remove, right? If you want to take them away. So you could just strip down the ones you don't want as well. I always leave the usual ones up there just because I like to. But I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say add tool tab and I'm going to say custom. Okay. And then we can name it. So I'm actually going to name this one tethered, even though I always shoot, you would be tethered shooting. I'll call it onset. So this is what I'm going to call onset. You've got a choice of icons here, of course. If you want to be a moon or a heart or the sun, whatever you want, a shovel, I guess. I don't know what that is. It's like a little shovel. Maybe it's a knife. I don't know. I'm just going to make it number 1. We're going to call it onset. I'm going to say add tab. So now we can put whatever we like here, right? We can control what we put in our tab. So one thing that I would do typically is, if you don't really know what you want to put there, is just start looking through what's in the current tabs. Like you've got this tab here, which is like your library tab, which again, if I'm shooting tethered, I'm not using this tab that much. I primarily am using the camera tab. So I'm going to look here and I'm going to see what's here that I might use. As much as everybody loves histograms, if I'm shooting tethered, I am almost never looking at the histogram. So I'm not going to do exposure evaluation. Camera, I do want. I want camera mostly so I can see my camera settings, but also so I can shoot the camera remotely and also just make sure it's connected. It just is that peace of mind. So the camera tab I want. So I'm just going to go over here and right click, add tool. I'm going to find camera. And there it is, right? My camera tab is here. Clearly, we don't see anything because there's no camera connected currently. All right, so I'll close that. I'm going to come back over here. What else do I want from here? I don't want exposure evaluation. I can want camera. I don't need camera focus. To me, this is not something I use very much. I have used it in the past, but if I'm doing a typical job, I'm not using camera focus, so I'm not going to put that there. Camera settings. Again, I don't really need all the extra stuff they give you with the camera settings. You can do a bunch of stuff here. Obviously, the camera's not connected, so I can't do it, but everything that I would use in the camera, which is like basically your f-stop and your shutter speed, the things I might change remotely, I can do here. So I'm not going to do camera settings. Next image, next capture naming. This I'm going to use. Now, when you watch me do on-set live videos, you don't see me use it very much because I'm just shooting one thing. But if I'm shooting a catalog, like if we look at these images of Erica, if this were a catalog, I would name the images in this outfit one thing, and then I would usually the item number by the manufacturer. So let's say this is dress 1, 2, 3. It'd be like dress 1, 2, 3 would be the name of it, right? And then when I got here, I would change it to dress 4, 5, 6, and then I would be dress 5, 7, 8, whatever it is, you know. This way, when you're sorting through them, you can sort them by types. If you want to go one step further, depending on your situation, you might also use next capture location, which is right below it. What this will do is it'll allow you to, if I hit choose folder, for instance, it will pop this up. And then what I could actually do is create a new folder inside. So I could create one, you know, dress 1, 2, 3. And then everything I started, you know, status capture folder. And then everything I would shoot from that point would go in there. So it depends on how you work. You might do that extra step. That's up to you if you want to do that or not. I used to always do that if I was delivering, especially direct to the client, like if I was giving them a hard drive right there on the spot, because you don't know what kind of computer they have. Moving around lots of big files might be slow for them, so just putting them where they need to be right away is a good thing. Excuse me. So I think I'll actually put both of these in there. I wasn't going to do location at first, but now I think I've convinced myself. So I'm going to click here, add tool. Right, and I'm going to scroll down until I find it. Next capture location. And I'm also going to add next capture naming. Okay. We're going to deal with these in a second. Now I'm going to come back over. Now your next thing that they typically list here is next capture adjustment. Now I have to say that for me, I always leave this 99% of the time exactly the way it's set right now, which is all the defaults, and then other is going to be capture from last, copy from last, I should say. And no styles put on, and no alignment, and blah, blah. I don't use that stuff. I set it up usually at the very beginning of the shoot. I never touch it again, so I can leave it here where it is, but not, you know, I'm not going to take it away. But I'm not going to add it to my custom tab. The next thing is overlay. That's something I use quite a bit on some jobs, so we'll put overlay there. So let's go over here, overlay. Okay. And then we're going to go, I guess I should talk about it. So what overlay does, which I don't have one to show you really right now, but what it allows you to do is you put an image on top of an image. So this is used, if you've seen, I've done this a few times for Adorama where I do advertising photography. I show like text and stuff. So you get like a transparent TIFF file or whatever is usually the best way to do it. And you drop it here, and then that sits over your image so you can frame things up. So that's really what that's for. And it is something you use a decent amount when you're doing advertising work. So I'll put it there because I think it's useful. For me, again, Capture Pilot, again, I would probably turn this on once and then not again, so I don't need it in my actual like working tab. Okay, but there are some other things that I use when I'm shooting. If I come over here, again, lens correction, I don't touch really. Purple fringing, crop, all this stuff I don't use. Rotation, flip, I don't use any of that stuff. In here, one thing that I will use while I'm shooting is white balance. I'll do that quite a bit actually, as I will be shooting color balance targets, especially if it's catalog. And if I'm sorting them by type, I'm going to shoot one frame at the beginning of each look with my color balance chart, my X-ray chart. So I want that there. So I'm going to add that. Let's see. That was called color balance, right? Oh. Nope, that's not the one. I said color balance, but that's not what I want. Let's take that away. If you put one in by mistake, you can just go remove color balance. What's it called again? It's called white balance. I guess that makes sense. Add tool, balance, boom. Okay. Oh, see if we get conversation. Throw away the curves. I do use the levels all the time. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for the naming, that's pretty much how I do it. I would just use the thumbnails at the end and sort them into folders afterwards. Yeah, it kind of depends what you are doing. You know, on like a catalog job, and I'm not talking some, smaller company for the web where you're going to do all the back end work. Typically on a job like that, you're not doing the retouching or anything. Like you're literally just delivering raw files. So, you don't have a chance in the back end. Like you don't, I mean, I would sometimes bust out like JPEGs for the client if they had like a very, they wanted them immediately. But generally speaking, you're delivering full-fledged raw files, and then they're going to go to the printer. So you need to have this stuff organized as you're shooting it. So I don't do it after the fact on those kind of jobs. But yeah, exporting JPEGs for a client is a good idea. The thumbnails, as you're calling them. Yeah, cool. All right, so back here, I added that white balance. I never changed that really. I never look at the histogram here. White balance, yes. Color editor, I'm not going to do that while I'm shooting tethered. That's stuff I do in post, right? Same thing with color balance and also black and white. Again, if very specifically I want to make something black and white, it's not that hard for me to come over. I'm not deleting it from the program. I'm just not putting it in my quick menu. So we'll move on. Here again, don't use the histogram. Layers, again, I'm not editing. I'm not going to use this here. Again, basic categories, the white balance we already put. Exposure is one I will use. Even though when we go to editing, I'm going to add levels. You'll see that. I'm going to put exposure here because if you've ever seen me do, the live demos, you'll see me drag the exposure slider over just to check things. So for instance, I might shoot this and go, oh, I don't know. It looks a little dark to me. Let me just see. And then I'll like drag it over a bit and be like, okay, that looks right. Then I'll look at this and be like, okay, that's a third of a stop. And then of course I'll go back and then I'll adjust my camera or lighting. So I do use exposure actually while I'm shooting quite a bit, even though I don't use it as much in post. I'm not going to use clarity or levels or curves or vignettes. Okay, Navigator is something you may or may not use. It really depends on how you like to operate. I'll kind of talk about this because there's two different things. There's Navigator and there's Focus. Like there's two ways to do what I consider a similar thing, right? If you leave your main image, so let's say this is the image of Erica. If you want to leave your main screen blown up so you can see how tight it is or how focused it is like that, right? What you do is you can use your Navigator to then quickly move around and be like, okay, yeah, but are our hands in focus? Oh yeah, is her face in focus? So that's what the Navigator is good for. If you want to move around, I would leave this open if I was doing, let's say, a product shoot, like a table of products, right? And you want to see it really, all the detail all the time with clients looking over your shoulder. And then you can grab this just to move around. If they're like, oh, but are the apples in focus? You can just move over to the apples, whatever. I guess her elbow is the apples. That's one way to do it. It's not how I typically shoot for the kind of work I do, so I would not put Navigator there. Instead, I put Focus. What Focus does is it allows you to clock in on a spot like that, right? And then this here can be whatever size, and I'm blown up full here. If you're shooting on a tripod, which I normally am, and if you're shooting something like a catalog, what you're going to find is that your images are, the eye is gonna stay more or less, in the same place. It's gonna be close anyways, so you can evaluate that focus really quickly. So that's what that's for. As you're shooting, the digital tech or your assistant or whatever is watching the shots come up, of course, but they're also watching that focus. And then if they see that you're having issues, like something's going in and out or whatever, they can just quickly be like, hey, it looks like you're having some out of focus, recheck that, whatever, blah, blah. So I always leave that, and I usually leave it on the eye because that's generally what we want to be in focus. It depends on what you're shooting, of course. And that's what I'll do. You can adjust it. I have it 100%, which is where I normally use it. So focus is something I want, so I'm going to put this in here. Add tool, focus. Okay. Let's go back. I think that's almost everything that I would use. Let's just quickly look at everything else. High dynamic range, blah, blah. We don't do any of that. All right, so we got focus. I don't use sharpening while I'm shooting, film grain, all of this stuff, spot removal. I'm not using any of that while I'm shooting. Again, if I have an issue with the moire, maybe while we're shooting, if the client was nervous, I would go back and just do it from this tab, but it doesn't need to be in my quick tab. This is styles, which I never use. This is just my info. Again, not something I use. Now, if you were shooting something, I don't know, there might be a reason to use the metadata stuff. It's not something I use a lot, but you might want to put like keywords, right? Like, let's say, for instance, you're doing it for an online catalog, and you are going to end up having to do the back end work, and you want to save yourself some work. You look at the next dress before it's put up, and the client comes over and they're like, "This is dress 1, 2, 3," and then they're like, "Okay, yeah, it's a spring dress, and it is pink, and you're going to put in your keywords here, and you do that for each image, for each set, as you're shooting it, and then you can just copy and paste it. It's not something I do live, so again, it's not something that I do, but you might use that. So I'm not going to put it there. And then this is, of course, our output, which I'm not going to put there either. So right now we have these items. Now, the other important thing here, hey, yeah, the loop guy. I don't like the loop. The reason why I don't use the loop, by the way, again, in actual shooting for catalogs, is because let's say that you're the assistant and you've got your photographer over there, your digital tech, right? So they're shooting and shooting and shooting. To use the loop, you've got to go over, you got to constantly be like, I can't make it work. Why is the loop not working? Oh, because I'm not on the loop. Where am my loop? Oh, my loop tool is gone. Or did I change? Oh, I changed it, that's why. I think I changed it because I have the focus on there. Anyways, you got to click on it constantly, which you don't want that extra step. Here you just see it. You automatically see the focus right away. So that's the reason why I don't know what happened to my loop tool. I got rid of it somehow. But, and of course you can zoom back with it as well if you want. I mean, you don't have to do 100%. And you can do bigger than 100%. But 100 is where I usually just leave it. Okay, so now let's organize this, right? That's a very specific question. Yeah, I mean, the loop is good. Again, if I'm shooting fast, it's no good. The loop is okay. So you have to think about this in two different ways too. I'm setting myself up for when I'm shooting a job, a catalog. I'm not looking at the computer, right? The assistant is doing it while we're shooting. If I shoot a bunch of photos, like say headshots for an actor, and it's just me and them, and then we go back to the computer and we're looking together, then the loop I might use, So that's really the difference. I mean, you got to think about what you're making. And that's the beauty of doing these custom things, is you can set them up for different stuff. So anyways, all right, so we're going to look at all the stuff we have here. Let's take a peek. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to now set them up in a way that is most useful to me. You've got the camera, you got next capture location, you've got next capture naming. I'm going to use next capture naming a lot, right? That's going to be a big thing that I'm going to use. The camera, while I'm shooting, I don't actually need to have it open all the time, so I'll probably leave it closed. Next capture location, again, if I do that way of doing it, I'll do that. So these two will be on top. Overlay, again, I'll only use it if I'm using it, so I'll put that down near the bottom. White balance I might do each time, but again, I'm only going to do it once, so I don't need it all the time, so I'll put that down at the bottom. You see I'm just moving them around, right? Exposure, again, I'll put that next to white balance, so I'm organized. And then I'll have focus open, right? So while I'm shooting, well, I'm slightly out of focus. Look at that. Da-da-da-da. So while I'm shooting, right, what all the assistant or digital tech or client or whatever needs to see is this, right? These are all the tools that they're going to need to use on a regular basis. When we set up each shoot, they're going to enter in the information here. They're going to make sure it's in focus. If we stop to evaluate something, we can just flip exposure down and adjust it. Otherwise, that doesn't need to stay open, right? That's the reason why they close like that. Again, you leave overlay up if you have an overlay going. But typically, if I'm shooting like a catalog, this is it, man. I'm just going to leave it just like this. Not going to touch anything else. In fact, it doesn't even need to leave white balance open. But, you know, depending on the size of your screen. Because remember, too, right? I mean, I guess you're looking at it in a video, but I'm looking at it at a big screen right here. You might find yourself sometimes where you're tethered and you just have your laptop, you know, and you're not on a big screen. So you don't want all this stuff cluttering your screen, right? It keeps things simple. So that's the reason why I set that up like that. All right. So, you know, that's pretty good. We're going to leave that there. I'll probably leave this open. What I would likely do is when I first set up, I would leave this open to make sure I use it. And then let's say next capture location. Let's say I'm only going to do that like once per session. Again, I would walk away. When I first open this up, I want this all open. And then once I've used this, I don't need it anymore. I'll just close it back. So I'm not staring at it. You know, I need to see it. That's how we do that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that was pretty fast and easy. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to, let's make another one. We're going to make one for editing. So again, I can add tool tab, custom. We'll call this one editing. Oops, capital Z there. Let's see. I'm just gonna call this 2. All right. So now, once again, we're here. So we can do the same thing. I mean, you know, most of this stuff. Now here, I'm gonna want the exposure evaluation, right? I want my histogram here. Again, it's not something, even though it's called exposure evaluation, it's not something I really use to evaluate my exposure when I'm shooting a job. But when I'm editing, sometimes I do like to look at it. So I'll put that there. Can't hurt. Then we'll come back. Anything else from this tab that I want? And again, I'm editing, right? So here I'm going to use the magnifying glass, which not the magnifying glass, but the I don't know why that went away. It would not be the right tool. I do that sometimes. I'm gonna get rid of. I'm gonna use the whatever. Like I'm gonna go manually, basically, to zoom in when I want to, so I don't need the focus thing open. Camera settings I don't need. Next capture naming, I'm not changing anything, right? Next capture, so I don't need any of this stuff, right? So skip over that. I very rarely mess around with the lens correction or the purple fringing. Again, it's a specialized thing. Which, thankfully, I don't have a lot of lenses that have issues, so I don't really use most of this stuff. But what I might, actually, I might have used that in this one. I almost forgot. Here's something I would use, which is grid. Okay, so the grid, right, it allows you to, of course, have a grid, you know? This helps for composition, helps for keeping things straight. You know, it just overlays it, so you don't have to worry about it. You can do that. Of course, you can do the gold ratio. So depending on what you like to do. So the grid is good, and you can also add, you know, more. So if you don't want to do rules of thirds, you could do it like that, you know, to have more grids if you're trying to break things down. And of course, you can also do your Fibonacci circle-y thingy. This is really the way you want to be, right? None of that rule of thirds stuff. This is, you need the whole swirl going on. But anyways, rectangular is good. 3 is probably where I'm going to leave it. And of course, you can change the color if you want, depending on what you're. In this case, the white is fine, but so I would put this here too. And in fact, I'm going to put this next to overlay because that's where I would use them both. So let's go back to here again. We're going to add here. We're going to add. Again, I'm not messing with most of this stuff. We are editing, so I'll add black and white. I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. Let's see. Clarity, I never use. Color balance. Yes. Rare, but I do use it sometimes, so I'll put that there. Crop, I'm definitely going to use. So I'm just adding the things here. I'm not going to go through the things because I mean, you get the idea. Now, again, I don't really use the curves so much. I do use my exposure. Let's see. Film grain, I don't really use that so much. Filters, I don't really use that. Focus, nope, nope. Grid, nope. High dynamic range, I use. This is your actual histogram, which I don't really use. Keywords, again, don't really use them that much. Layers we use. Let's see, levels is what I mostly use. That's probably my main tool here. Library, don't need to look at. Live view, don't need that. Metadata, not something I mess with too much. Navigator. Navigator can be useful in editing, but I'm not really going to use it. Next capture, blah, blah, blah. Don't need that. Noise reduction, again, don't really use that stuff. Application, overlay. Very rarely do I use any of this. You know, process recipes, purple fringing. So I'm just going down. And again, not that I never use it, right? Rotation and flip, I might use that, but it's not that common. So sharpening, spot removal. I think I can do that with the layers if I'm not mistaken. I'll just put it in there for a second. We're going to take a look and organize these in a second. And styles and presets, nope, white balance. Okay. All right, so now we've got all the stuff that I think we'd probably use the most. Yeah, because if I want to spot remove, I can just grab this and be like, I want to remove this spot from her face. And that will just make a new layer. So I don't need, it's not exactly the same, but that's the way I would do it. So I'm going to delete that layer. Oh, minus, there we go. All right, so I don't need spot removal. I guess it's just adjusts. This actually does it. It's like an automatic thing. I never use that. It's cool. I just never use it. So I'm going to get rid of that. It's funny, some of these tools that you see, you're like, oh, I don't use that. Maybe I should use it. All right, so now we've got this. Let's take a peek, right? You're watching a replay from me on Adorama, and now I'm here. I'm all over the place. Yeah, healing to create its own layer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Spotting, that's not something I use that much. So, number one, let me go back to this one and take away that grid because I don't want to stare at it all day. All right. So now we're going to organize this. Just because they always leave it up there, I'm just used to seeing it at the top. I'll leave the exposure evaluation where it is. Black and white is, again, not something I use that much, so I'm going to drag it to the bottom. I'm basically sorting things by either types or by how often I use it. Again, crop, not something I use as much. But levels is probably the main thing that I use, right? So I use levels, I use exposure a decent amount, and I use high dynamic range. And I use white balance, which I will actually put here, I think. No, I'll put it here. Okay. And color balance, again, I only click into it if I care about it once in a while. So these are ones I'm not going to mess with too much. Layers I'll leave open just because, you know, actually I think it'll automatically open up if I just go to, if I make one. No, it doesn't. Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so I'll leave that open then. So now I've set up closer to like how I would normally operate, right? I can see my histograms, well, my exposure evaluation here, right? And I can see, you know, what I might want to mess with here, right? This is what I normally do. If you look at, if you watch these videos, and this is my 90% of what I do is here. Then occasionally I'll do something with my exposure, you know, and then these in extreme cases, white balance, sometimes I mess with it, depends. And then the layers and stuff are very secondary. So this gives me my my basic editing menu, right? And now you know, again, you can also, by the way, like let's say that I made this tethered shooting one, and I'm like, well, I don't really use the camera then. You can actually just click on here and remove it. It's called capture, right? I can just remove it. Boop, it's gone. Well, it's gonna, boop, it's gone, right? And if I wanted it back, I can just click here again and go like that. And it's back. You can also hold down Control and move them around. So I'll put it back where it was. So yeah, if you feel like it's getting too cluttered up here, you certainly can do that. You can move things, you know, in and out as needed, depending on what you're doing. Like let's say that you're hiring different photo assistants to help you a lot, and you want to make sure that they just, you want to maybe restrict them in a sense of what tools they have. You can make just tabs that they're allowed to get into and just turn all the other ones off when you're working with them. So it's very easy to do that. So I hope that was helpful, guys. If you don't follow me on Twitch, go ahead and jump over there and follow me, Daniel Norton Photographer. That way you'll get, the notifications and such, so you know when I go live over there. Generally it's Sunday around 3 p.m., but it does rotate a little bit, and I do some other stuff there occasionally. And of course, if you don't follow me here on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Click the like button, ring the bell so you get the notifications, and I'll see you next time.